Hey guys, how's it going? Srey here. So today I want to talk about Zul'jin. Zul'jin is the newest hero in Heroes of the Storm, and he is pretty much the definition of a hypercarry. So he's a sustained range damage, single target DPS, and he's a little bit different than, say, Vala or Tychus. So Vala is a bit more mobile and has a bit more AoE damage, while Tychus is tankier and relies a bit more on abilities and positioning and is more anti-tank. So Zul'jin is just straight up, I'm gonna target you with single target damage, and I do a lot of it. And he has a few kind of interesting things that we'll take a look at.
Choose a talent.
So his Q is Grievous Throw, and he throws an axe in a targeted direction that deals damage for the first two enemies hit and marking them for 8 seconds. So marked enemies take 50% bonus damage from Zul'jin's next three basic attacks. So it just looks like this, and 1, 2, 3, and then the attacks after go back to the normal damage. His W is Twin Cleave. You throw two axes in a large circular arc, dealing damage, and enemies are slowed by 15% per axe for 2 seconds. So it's a flat, basically 30% slow if you hit them with both. It just looks like this. Now it has a kind of interesting targeting thing. So you can't, if you want to hit a target, say that's within this range, you have to aim to the side. And it doesn't matter if the axes hit at the same time, they will still hit. So the slow is nice, and it's pretty much your main source of wave clear. So Grievous Throw you want to use basically every time. It's really important to hit this ability because it's your main source of damage. You do 50% more damage if you hit a target, and it also obviously does damage on the initial impact. So it's really, really important that if you are playing Zul'jin, you are able to hit Grievous Throw, and then Twin Cleave helps slow and do damage as well. His E is regeneration, and what it does is, let me just take some damage here so I can show you. His E, you channel for over 4 seconds and you heal up to 25% of your maximum health. So if you take any damage or you interrupt the effect, it'll cancel, and it just looks like this. So he has nice inbuilt regeneration. Now, all of his abilities, basic abilities so far, are pretty standard and basic and nothing too interesting. It's really, it comes down to his passive that is the kind of core function of his kit. So his passive, or his trait slash passive, I guess, for every 1% of maximum health he's missing, it increases his attack speed by 1%. So if he's at 50% health, he'll gain 50% attack speed. If he's at 30% health, he'll gain 70% attack speed. And he actually hits fairly hard. He has pretty high attack damage, and his attack speed is pretty high. So he actually does quite a bit of base damage as is. So having this passive makes him do considerably more. Now the activate, you can also activate his passive, as you can see here. And when you activate it, his basic attack damage is increased by 25%, and more interestingly, you consume 2% of your max health per attack. So while the basic attack damage is nice, a 25% increase, it's not necessarily the most important reason to use this ability. So obviously if you use this ability, if you activate it, every attack that you do will drain your max health, and you'll slowly, as you can see here, your attack speed will increase exponentially the faster, the lower amount of health that you have. So sometimes, or a lot of the time on Zul'jin, to it's actually beneficial to activate this ability just to take damage or to intentionally take damage on Zul'jin. Now this means that, of course, it's very important to have a really good dedicated healer in Zul'jin, and you don't actually want to be topped off in a lot of fights. So having a good healer will make the difference between being able to play Zul'jin properly. Because if your healer is constantly topping off to full health when you don't need to be topped off to full health, then you're going to have significantly lower damage. You usually want to be maybe about you want to be, I mean, optimally, you want to be as low health as you possibly can without risking dying. So generally, maybe about 50%, but you just want your healers to be keep a really close watch on you. Now he also works really well with shields, so Zarya and Tassadar benefit him fantastically because they effectively increase his health without actually increasing his health, and they do that by providing shields. And Tassadar's lifesteal is also really good because it basically nullifies the damage you'll deal to yourself from Berserker because you'll also gain lifesteal. So Zul'jin's job in a team fight is just to put as much damage as he can possibly put out, and it's going to do damage to pretty much any target. So you don't have to necessarily attack their back line. You can attack their front line. He does a ton of damage. He is the highest single target DPS hero in the game. I believe it's even higher than Tychus, even when he's activating his passive. If you have low health and you have talents that are using that are directed towards it. So let's go over talents now that we're talking about it. So level 1, we have Bone Slicer. Grievous Throw now pierces through all enemies and the bonus damage is increased by 15%. So it'll do 65% damage, and instead of hitting the first 2 enemies, it hits all enemies. It'll just keep going. Arcana Axes lowers the cooldown of Twin Blades by 0.5 seconds for every hero hit. So if you hit one hero, if there's one hero that you can hit, and you can hit them with 2 axes, you'll reduce the cooldown by 1. So it effectively reduces the cooldown of Twin Cleave by 1 second per hero, as long as you hit them with both of the cleaves. It also has a passive effect, which is interesting. While below 50% health, ability power is increased by 25%. And you want Axe, which is every 5 basic attacks against heroes increases Zul'jin's basic attack damage by 1.5. This stacks infinitely, so you can constantly stack it throughout the entire game. And after hitting heroes 120 times, that's not 120 stacks, so it's 120 times, his attack range will be increased by 20%. So the talent you want here is you want Axe. It's just really strong. It's going to increase your damage by, once you stack it, like, you'll get at least 40 extra damage during the game from this talent, and you can stack it early, and you can get a lot more. I've seen as much as 80 or more per auto attack. Remember, you have insanely increased attack speed as well, so you're going to get insane value from you want Axe. And in addition, the reward is also really strong. A 20% increase attack range is quite good. Um, his attack range is, fairly short. I think it's maybe Vala range, but you can get up to close to Raynor with you want Axe. So this is a really strong talent. And even though Bone Slicer looks really good, the fact is that you can only attack one hero at a time. So really, the only thing the piercing effect does is give you wave clear. And because if I queue the wave here, you can see that I marked them all, but I can't attack them all. I can still only attack one target at a time. Okay. Oops. Alright, so what we want to do is get you want Axe. Again, really strong talent. So at 16, we have a few options. Troll's Blood increases regeneration amount healed by 75%. That's actually a very large increase in heal. Let the Killing Begin. Kind of interesting, but not really. When Zul'jin kills an enemy, its attack speed increased by 6% up to 30% for 15 seconds, and basic attacks completely refresh the duration. Hero takedowns grant 30% attack speed instantly. And Headhunter, every time or once you get a takedown on all unique enemy heroes, you can activate to reveal all heroes on the map for 4 seconds. So that seems really cool at first, but really not that useful. So Troll's Blood is good if you don't have a healer on your team for whatever reason, or you're just never being healed, or you have no access to healing. This can be a good talent. But Let the Killing Begin is basically just better. So it's pretty much going to give you a permanent 30% attack speed increase, which is really strong. And you typically want to, so you'll get, when it says kill an enemy, it's talking about minions basically, so you're going to be able to stack this up through minions. And since any basic attacks refresh the duration, and it's a 15-second duration, it's really hard to lose this in the first place. You do have to get the killing blow on the minions, but that's not difficult to do. And remember, hero takedowns doesn't necessarily mean you have to get the killing blow on heroes, it just means the hero has to die near you. This is the clear option at level 4. At level 7, we have Vicious Assault, so it increases the bonus damage. Basic attack hits from Grievous Throw to 6 from 3. And attacks against heroes afflicted by it reduce the cooldown of Grievous Throw by 2 seconds. So this essentially gives you 100% uptime on Grievous Throw instead of only 3 basic attacks every 8 seconds. Especially once you get a really fast attack speed when your health is low. This gives you a huge amount of extra damage because you will never run out of charges. It's also interesting to note that Grievous Throw and Twin Blades, if you look when I'm attacking here, they do not interrupt your attack animation at all. So you can cast both. Oops. Just wanted to make that clear. So the other option here is wrong place, wrong time. If the enemy hit by both Twin Cleave axes at the same time, they take 307 bonus damage. So you can see that the axes do 246 each. And when they hit that center here, or they hit over here, so there or there, you'll do extra damage. Now, this is just too situational, and you're pretty much never going to be able to get the bonus damage, so it's just not worth it. While below 50% health, his basic attack damage is increased by 25%. That's the Recklessness talent. And the talent here, again, is you want to take is just Vicious Assault. It does more damage than, honestly, either of these options, and it's more reliable as well. At level 10, we have Tazdingo and Guillotine. So Tazdingo is you activate it, and for the next 4 seconds, Zul'jin is unkillable and cannot be reduced to less than 1 health. Guillotine, you launch a massive axe in the air, and it'll drop down after a short delay, dealing damage, and the damage is increased the lower your health is. So the cooldown on Guillotine is half the cooldown of Tazdingo, and it can do an insane amount of damage. So at level 20, if you're very very low health, it can do over 2200 damage, which is an insane amount of damage since its AOE has a very large range. The range is very very large, but the delay is a little bit. It doesn't seem like too much of a delay, but say you're trying to hit like a Vala or something. The problem is that you do need to be low health, or it does basically 0 damage. So if I attack these ogres here, you can see that it does like nothing. But if I get really low, it'll do significant amount of damage. You can almost one-hit people. You can almost like one-hit a tracer or something if you have like 10 health or something. But the damage is significantly increased when you're low health on Guillotine. That being said, I still wouldn't advise that you take it, and I still think that Tazdingo is better. So Tazdingo, let's just see when we activate it here, is very, very, very strong. So you have to remember that when you're low health, your attack speed is significantly increased as well. So you're gonna be able to, oh, I died. So you're gonna be able to knock out enemies with Tazdingo when you're low health, when they expect to kill you, and a lot of times I've seen that you'll just survive anyway. It also has a lot of good combinations with, say, Karazim's Palm, Divine Palm, as well as any kind of shields or heals or ancestral healing from Rhaegar. So it has a lot of synergies with supports that way as well. Something else I want to note is when you use Berserker and it drains your health, this will never kill you. So if you're at like 5 health or 1 health or something, you'll never kill yourself by activating Berserker. So I would always recommend going Tazdingo. At level 13, the options here kind of suck. We have Eye of Zul'jin. Hitting enemy hero with Grievous Throw increases Zul'jin's movement speed by 25% for 2 seconds, which is decent. But it's not the best thing in the world, but it's better than the other options here. So Force Medicine is Zul'jin no longer has to be channeled, allowing a regeneration no longer has to be channeled. However, taking damage will still end the effect. And taking damage is pretty much the limiting factor. It's not the fact that you have to stand still. So with Force Medicine, you can just pop E and walk around as you would normally, but I don't think it's worth a level 13 talent. Voodoo Shuffle activates to remove all root and slow effects on Zul'jin. This could be situational versus teams that have, for whatever reason, have a ton of slow and root effects. Maybe Jaina, Malfurion, a lot of heroes like that. But otherwise, I just don't think it's worth it. It's not like it removes stuns, it only removes root and slow effects. So Eye of Zul'jin is the choice you want to go. At level 16, we have Swirling Death, Lacerate, and Ferocity. Swirling Death, when cleaves axes cycle twice and can hit enemies on each revolution, but its cooldown is increased by 4 seconds, so that's from 8 seconds to 12. And if we take it here, you'll see that they'll just cycle twice. And they do potentially twice as much damage. However, Zul'jin is, again, not based on abilities, it's based on attack damage. His basic attacks, so you don't really want to use talents that increase those effects. Lacerates is actually pretty good. So it increases the slow amount of each twin blade by an additional 15%. So since the normal slow would be 30% potentially with 2 blades, you can potentially slow for 60%, which is very, very strong. And although this is a talent that increases the effect of your ability, that obviously will directly increase the effectiveness of your auto attacks because it lets you kite better and chase better and use your auto attacks more effectively. The other option is Ferocity, and that increases the attack speed bonus of Berserker by 40%. So it's not that when you activate Berserker, you instantly gain 40% attack speed. It increases the effectiveness of Berserker by 40%. So if you are at 50% health, and that would normally give you 50% attack speed, you'll now gain 70% attack speed. And if you are at 1 health, and that would normally give you 100% or near 100% attack speed, that would give you 140% attack speed. So it's 40% more attack speed than you would gain normally. Not you gain 40% attack speed. Just want to clear that up in case it was a little bit confusing, because it was a little confusing for me. So Ferocity is the option you want to go for here most of the time. If you want to kite, Lacerate could be a good pick. Level 20, we have Amani Resilience, Buzzsaw, and Ensnare. So Amani Resilience, when Testingo ends, you heal yourself for 50% of the damage you dealt while having Testingo activated. And this will usually heal you for a significant amount, maybe about like half your health, even more, sometimes a full heal if you're able to just completely chug out damage. This is a very, very, very strong option because when you're coming out of Testingo, especially if you have no healer, you're probably just going to instantly die. So basically, this makes it so that you won't just instantly die, and you can continue fighting afterwards. Buzzsaw, after using Guillotine, the Guillotine will continue forward, dealing 50% damage of Guillotine's damage to enemies in a line. This is really, really, really shit. It doesn't do any increased damage at all. It just does 50% AoE continued damage afterwards. So it doesn't at all increase your damage. A snare is a pretty cool idea. You throw a net forward in a line and it roots the first enemy hit for 2 seconds. So I'll just see here, that's just ensnare. And it's pretty good, but it's also replaces Amani Resilience. So you're going to want to always go Amani Resilience if you have Tazdingo. And for whatever reason, if you have Guillotine, then you want to go ensnare. I think Buzzsaw is just completely crap. So it's a pretty easy talent build. He only has, I think, 3 options at every tier, except for level 10, and they're pretty clear picks. So you want to focus on attack damage, and you want to focus on kiting and doing more damage just with your auto attacks. He does the highest amount of damage in the game for single target. I was testing it earlier. I was getting it like almost up to 1800 damage. Obviously, that's really optimal. 1800 DPS. Obviously, that's using really optimal settings, and you probably will never get that in a team fight. But he still does an incredible amount of single target damage, and he will absolutely melt anyone. You can kill any kind of like squishy, like a Voller or something, within a second or two with just using auto attacks. His attack damage is is really, 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 really high. And I've gotten a few times where you can get turnaround kills just in a 1v2 and a 1v3 situation by activating Tastingo because they just don't respect you. You want to watch out though when you use Tastingo because you can't use it while stunned or silenced or polymorphed. So if you get CC locked, you won't be able to use Tastingo. So you might want to use it early in those situations. And you also have to be aware that the enemy team might just kite you or stun you or do any kind of thing that would just nullify the effect of you being able to auto attack. So if you're stunned for like 2 seconds, you only gain 2 seconds worth of Tastingo. So this is countered if the enemy team is smart, and it's really, really effective versus enemies that aren't so smart. Especially since Zul'jin is still pretty new, enemies just don't respect the fact of Testingo. So the main things that I want to leave you with Zul'jin are you don't want to be full health when you're playing this hero at all. You want to be as low health as you can be without risking dying, and you want a good healer to go along with you as well. Also, don't feel like you have to activate Berserker. It only increases your attack damage by 25%, and if you're already low enough that you don't need the attack speed bonus from having reduced health, then don't activate it. 25% is a good damage bonus, but it's not always the difference between getting a kill or not. So you can often get away with not using this, not activating it, especially if you're low. But if you're full health, I would pretty much always activate it. Remember that Grievous Throw is the key ability for Zul'jin. You need to be hitting the skill shot if you want to do any kind of damage whatsoever. Twin Cleave is basically just a slow for the most part. You can use it to do damage, but effectively it's just a slow. And Regeneration can help you get back into the fight if you get really low or anything. 25% health regen every 15 seconds is very, very good. And that's pretty much all there is to know about Zul'jin. He's good in most comps. He's good on most maps. It's better on maps where he has room to kite and you won't get flanked. He doesn't really have any CC. He doesn't have any peel. His only real benefit is being incredibly bulk and doing a ton of damage. So that his defensive abilities include doing damage, and he's pretty much 100% all offense hero. And he's going to take some time to get used to. in terms of if you're used to like playing Vala or you're used to playing Tychus, because you really have to know your limits and when to commit to fights. So that's all I have for you today. Hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, I'll talk to you then. See you later, guys.